Scott Ellis, 2811 Breeze Ridge Road, O'Galley, Florida. I want to quote, as this gets underway, what I was told by a commissioner. Speakers will now have 5 minutes to speak. Unlike the public comment section where board policy prohibits taking action except in emergencies, there will now be a forum for interaction with the board and staff. Therefore, I expect to have a forum for interaction with the board and staff when we all get through speaking, and not to be just like the public comment section where it's thank you, sit down. Let me proceed. I've asked who wrote this memo, and all I got was 6 or 7 names. So who knows who really wrote it? I don't know who wrote it. I've got a number of questions. I'm going to go through what I have to say. If you can't keep up with the questions, you can certainly listen to the tape, and you'll hear the questions. I expected on a memo that we would get something like, here's what's right, here's what's wrong, what's a disagreement, planned fixes, planned ideas, what can't be done, what can be done. Almost like an engineering report. But again, with this memo, what we have is nothing is wrong, nothing was wrong, circle the wagons, repeat the company line, and shoot the messengers with sarcastic comments. I will tell you that if I were an attorney, I wanted to inflame the other party and keep the meter running, this is a perfect memo to keep the meter running, and it's done its job. I do enjoy the irony of the word initiative, dictionary word for initiative, the ability to assess and begin things independently. Item by item, flea market. Flea market has been requested for over 4 years through the AAB. I'm glad it's underway. Why are animals not inoculated for rabies upon intake? Why are animals not spay-neutered at the end of their stray time? On Miss LaSalle, who's been treated extremely poorly by whoever wrote this memo, I'd like to go through this about Guardian. I'd like to know, is it base policy when an animal gets an upper respiratory, they are to be killed that day? The dog was refused the medical foster. There was actually a boxer rescue event 3 days later where the dog probably could have been adopted if he were still alive. It is claimed under Butter there are health watch boxes at the shelter. I go to the shelter every week. I have never seen a health watch box. I'd like to know where they are because I have never seen them. Ms. LaSalle left written notes on Butter. They're relayed to staff. Why was it necessary for her to also complete a health watch form? Does your staff not talk to each other in a small shelter environment? Why is an outside scale not used to weigh each dog each day as they are walked? And I have to agree, it is an amazingly ludicrous coincidence. After 66 days, Sasha's put down the exact day of the commission meeting. Her and one other dog. Just an incredible coincidence. I do find it demeaning and truly ludicrous to comment that anyone here has a complete lack of understanding of how an open admission shelter operates. And I go back to this, which I have said multiple times, we are tired of being talked down to with shelters for dummies. My experience is that most people who talk down do so out of a sense of their own insecurity, with their own knowledge. On November 25th, I sent an email to all Clerk's employees about a dog named Scarlet. Had been there less than 2 weeks at the shelter. I sent that email Monday morning. The dog was dead Monday afternoon, killed. The dog was killed for medical reasons, heartworm positive. I'd like to know, when you have numerous other dogs, heartworm positive, it's listed that if you adopt me, we'll fix the heartworm positive. Why this dog was killed for medical reasons. The day before the dog was killed, a volunteer had offered to come and get the dog, have it spayed, have a tummy tuck. The dog had been used for breeding. They arrived on Monday afternoon. Dog was already dead. Worker volunteer unity. Given the volunteer list was cold, do you actually consider someone who has shown up for 4 hours over 6 months to be an active volunteer? 4 hours in 6 months is an active volunteer. If there are 300 active volunteers, where are they, and is that reflected on the Volgistics scheduling? So when I look at Volgistics, I should see hundreds of these active volunteers on there. It is said Mrs. Mayers rarely communicates with the volunteer coordinator. I go to the shelter weekly. I have for months. I have seen the volunteer coordinator one time. I have seen her one time at the shelter in every trip. Is it expected the volunteer coordinator would be working in the field daily with the actual volunteers? If staffing levels don't permit implementation of good ideas, how can there be hundreds of thousands of dollars of unspent personnel budget returned to the board over 3 years? The flea market has been a great success. It took 5 years. NAC animal portraits are touted from volunteers. We had volunteers that did that. Base terminated them as volunteers. If staffing levels cannot permit good ideas, How can we afford to travel out into the community and pick up 100 trapped cats every month? Every month we send animal control out in a truck to pick up a cat that's been trapped in God knows where, from Scottsmore to Midco, 100 times a month. And we've got money to go chase down trapped cats.
Mr. Ellis,
are we here for
wrap up.
interaction?
No, I'm telling you that your 5 minutes are up if you'd like to wrap up.
Well, I've still got 2 pages to go.
Then I consider that completed then.
Then I consider this to be a waste of time, and we'll stick to public comments, because for public comments I can be out here by 10 o'clock and get the same thing done I can get done right now, which is shut up and sit down, and then we're going to go talk about what you said, and you'll not have a chance to have any interaction at all. I was told the purpose for this was to have interaction. Is the purpose for this interaction?
You may sit down. You may sit down, Mr. Ellis.
Yes, ma'am.
No, you do not direct to another commissioner.
You direct to her, and you're the chairman. She's asked to
Please
speak.
have him sit down.
Are you seriously asking the
Yes,
deputy
I
again?
am.
Do you realize how degrading?
Please sit down. I've asked you to please sit down.
Is this a form of interaction,
I'm
or is it not?
asking you to please sit down, sir.
I'm asking you a
Is
question.
he not allowed to be
Commissioner
asked?
Infantini,
I would like
he
to
has
ask him
5
a
minutes.
question. I thought I was allowed
Meeting-
to ask him questions.
10-minute break.
That if we're going to move this animal control issue forward, then we've got to come with a different attitude to these meetings and handling the problem. I don't know if you remember, and I didn't agree with Mr. Ellis' statement, but I said if divorce was an option, what would we do? Because I really think, maybe if we go out and RFI this thing and we get it taken away from us, and maybe the divorce does happen and we don't have to deal with it anymore. But I'm assuming that we're going to be in animal control business for a long time, and divorce is not an option, and we've got to figure out how to work with this. Mr. Ellis commented to me back then he'd rather do murder-suicide. Okay. Well, I'm not arguing. Well, see, rather we keep staff or not. My position is this. Divorce is not an option. If we're going to move this forward, we can't have the clerk of court and people thinking murder-suicide is the only solution.
Well, I think
And so I'm not interested in a workshop on a murder-suicide proposal. You're going to have to come to the table willing to work with our staff, with the current staff we have in place, and try to figure out a solution. Or I'm not interested in just meeting to figure out how horrible everything is. I got other things I can do.
But Commissioner,
But if you keep the current staff, the problem is, if you keep the current culture and the current staff, I believe his suggestion was murder-suicide with all of the exact same players. If you can mix up the players, sometimes the people that we have on board, in whatever capacity they are in, it's not the best matchup for that position. For instance, Debbie Rich, she would be fantastic as a volunteer coordinator. How about the front face of getting ideas out there, and implementing ideas, not to throw you under the bus, Debbie, sorry. But she adds a whole new face and a whole new energy to this program. What is wrong with hiring somebody like her to work full time? Perhaps the people that we have in there they're well-meaning, well-intentioned, hard workers, but they just don't have the skill set to get us to that next plane. That's my suggestion.
Well, I guess my point is this. It's not this board decision on who we hire in animal control.
But
It's a county manager decision and deputy county manager and the manager's in the position, okay? And if the attitude is going to be that, I never think it's appropriate for murder-suicide as the answer. I don't care if we got the same people or don't got the same people. And I don't think it's appropriate that that's how this board is being addressed to handle the situation. So so if those people are going to stay there.
you've been asked. Please sit down, sir. Sit down,
I'm not
sir.
putting words in your mouth. I asked you if
I know, but
divorce
you're
wasn't an option, how would you do it?
You're pulling it out of context. You're completely pulling it out of context.
I'm
and he's saying
what it was.
right here.
Let me say what I said so
He's
you're clear.
speaking.
Yes.
I told you what I said to you, and respectfully said it to you, was that Mr. Ellis, the way this thing is working right now, you are not making any progress.
That's correct.
I said to you at that point in time, if we're going to move forward and get some real solutions to animal control, you're going to have to work with our current staff, and we can't intimidate the staff that's in place because they are somewhat intimidated by you. Okay? And so, well, I'm telling you what I said. So, and then you can tell me if I didn't say it this way. And then I asked you the question: if divorce is not an option, how do we move forward? And you threw your hands up and said murder-suicide.
That's not quite correct.
Okay, tell me what part wasn't
My
correct.
first comment was, I said, Commissioner, we will just have to agree to disagree because I don't think we can get there with the current staff. And that should have been the end of the discussion. I clearly stated, we will have to agree to disagree. I don't think we can get there with the current staff. And quite truthfully, the memo with today's agenda item proves we can't get there with the current staff. It's the same kind of sarcastic circle the wagon, shoot the messenger. You then proceed to continue coming back at me with this issue. Divorce is not an option. And what would your option be?
Okay.
Right. I had already answered the question once.
All right, I'm not,
Okay,
maybe I had that question, but let me just say this to you.
You kept coming back with the same question. I answered it.
But Mr.
There's a
Ellison,
time
due
you
respect
agree
for
to
you.
disagree.
Okay, let's disagree, but due respect for you, you don't decide who works for Brevard County Board of Commission.
That's absolutely correct.
Okay, so you can't come and tell us to fire our staff.
I didn't tell you to fire them.
Well, then you said you can't work with them. What do you want us to do with them?
I told you I can't fix your staff.
Okay.
I can't fix your current staff. That is correct.
So you cannot work with the current people in place to move animal control
I will
system
tell you
forward.
this. As long as their attitude is to talk down to people and make sarcastic comments about volunteers, about what's ludicrous, and that nobody understands anything but them, you're right. I cannot work with people that think they know it all when they don't know a damn thing.
Okay.
You are absolutely correct.
Okay.
So if we want to have open attitudes, that's both sides of the fence. This is what we went through for 6 months on the AAB, which is how we got here in the first place, which was constantly being talked down to and not given the facts.
Okay.
So you are correct, Commissioner Fisher. If we are supposed to work with a sarcastic staff that says nothing is wrong, nothing was ever wrong, nothing will be wrong, then there's clearly nothing we can do to succeed in that environment.
Okay. Well, I've seen memos and emails calling staff.
I'm not allowed to use the I word.
Okay. Well, I'm just telling you.
I'm telling you, I bring you example after example after example
Okay.
of just flat out incompetent and untruth. For example, when you say in November that we can't move money from personnel to operating, and I can produce a budget change request from September where money was moved from personnel to operating by base, then clearly, yes, you can do it because you've done it 2 months earlier, and yet you lie to the media and say that you can't do it.
Okay.
Let me
ask
what do
a
you
question.
think my attitude is after that?
Okay, so decide on a workshop. All right? Is your attitude is that you cannot cooperate and work with the staff?
My attitude is, unless the staff changes, we're not going to get anywhere with the current staff. That is correct. Which is, and I sat there when I first came down here to speak. The first thing I said was, what I expected for the agenda item today was something similar to an engineering report, which is just what you got. These guys didn't get up here. They did not attack county facilities. They didn't talk about anything but an engineering report. Here's what we can do for you, and here's what it will cost, and here's what we cannot do for you. That's what today's memo should have been. Here's what's right. Here's what's wrong. Here's where we just disagree between right and wrong. Here's what we can fix. Here's what we don't have money to fix. A true engineering report. If you read this, there is no need for any words like ludicrous or some of the other comments that are in here have no reason to be in the agenda item today. And if you could tell me why they're there.
I can't tell you why they're there. This is what I can tell you, though.
Someone should take responsibility, because I can tell you this. I have disagreements come out of my office all day long, Clerk's office. Believe me, we have people all day long. I do not send someone back, I'm sorry you got your ticket by such and such PD. Those people are just ludicrous. Okay.
I can't vouch for that memo, but this is what I can say.
Okay,
I'm not interested.
That I'm supposed to work with.
Well, I guess what I'm saying to you is I'm not interested in having a workshop from my standpoint if you're not willing to work with current staff.
That's fine.
So,
I'm one person. Okay. There's a whole slew of people here.
Well, there's 500,000 people in the county. So, there's 500,000 people. So,
yes, there are.
All right. So that's what I'm really worried about. Okay.
So we have a workshop or not depends on Scott Ellis.
If you're the leader of the group.
No.
I am one person out of the 550,000 people.
For the group.
I'm not a spokesperson for anybody but me.
If everybody thinks the attitude to handle this is murder-suicide, I'm not going to be a part of it.
Well, you know what?
I do have.
Don't put people in ludicrous situations. When I tell you that we agree to disagree on the value of your staff, don't keep coming back at me with the same question.
Well, I'm telling you this. Our job is not to fire our staff. Okay? That's not a county commissioner job. When your job, when you're a county commissioner,
That's
that's Mr. Tipton's job.
And you know what, Brian,
So
the county
those people are going to have to work with
commissioners
those. So those people are going to have to be willing to work with current staff in place, or we're going to keep having these dialogues.
But
So
maybe staff needs to be transferred. Two other higher
That's not your
ranking. It is up to us to recommend.
That's the chart of
We can
ours.
make recommendations.
I understand it, but it's
No,
it's
we can
not
make
as if, Chuck, as
recommendations
you
to
know
our
full
staff.
well, we have
Commissioner
fired
Fisher,
people in
is
the past
that completed?
from the county.
Your questions?
Ask
Thank
Bill
you.
Wybo.
if Mr. Ellis want to talk about
Okay, you may sit down, please.
Well, I don't think we're ready to have a workshop.
I think that solved that. Okay.
I would like to have an opportunity to go over the questions, to sit down with Scott. And I think we all need to talk with some of these folks to get a better understanding. It would be a scheduled, brawl instead of a unscheduled one. So I think we're just not ready yet. I think we'll know when we're ready, but it's not yet. Because we don't know what the talking points are other than we just don't agree at this point in time. So I'd like an opportunity to see if we can put some focus to it before we do that. Any commissioner who wants to come back with a list of the things that we could talk about would be great, and we can do that. But at this point in time, we're just not ready to sit down and have that kind of discussion, because if the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome, that's exactly where we'd be. Because we have, as Scott said, I think there needs to be a more formal approach to some of these issues and get it out of the realm of the specifics that have happened to the policies that we need to talk about. So.
Please, no. Please, we're moving on. The next item